Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are, whatever you are doing. I hope you are having a wonderful time doing it. It is evening time right now where I am. So we are going to get started. We are on to day 9. We're still in the state's case. Prosecution still trying to make their case for murder, second-degree murder, with a lesser of manslaughter, I believe. So that's where we are currently. If you want to recap, go back a couple videos. It's all there. But yeah, this state should be in their case today. This should be because the defense's motion to acquit is also on today, the end of today. So should be at the end of today. And then yeah, spoiler alert, that gets denied, and then the trial goes on. But nonetheless, they do that. They have to, or they normally do. I guess you don't have to, but it's common practice, so I hear, to motion to acquit once they're done, just for a Hail Mary, I guess, just in case. But most judges don't. They send it to the jury to be the fact finders and be like, hey, there's enough evidence here for the jury to decide whether or not they want to acquit or they don't. So, but let's get into it and see where this thing goes.
Railway 3A, State versus George Zimmerman. Are you still working on the evidence longer?
I don't think we need to show what you did, so I think we can proceed and then take a break.
Okay. Is that too distracting for you, or do you think that we can have that? You can keep trying to get it open as you can. All right, is there anything else that we need to take up this morning before we begin with the next witness? No.
We'll have a full-day trial today, and we have the physicians be taken care of over the weekend.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for looking at that.
And I guess that means they will not work tomorrow morning. You have to have a schedule.
Yes, you are right in that assumption.
We're looking at the callback examiner today, and as far as which stipulation regarding the identity of the victim, that we asked the court to read at the time, so I'll present that to the court. One question, the defendant decide that time.
Okay, well, let me go ahead and share that first. Okay, and Mr. Zimmerman, if you'll say that for just one moment, sir. I've been handed a stipulation that appears to be signed by the state, your attorneys, and yourself. And it's a stipulation that the body examined on February 27th, 2012 by Dr. Shipping Bale, bearing the medical examiner's case number, is that of Trayvon Benjamin Martin. Do you agree with the stipulation?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and is that your signature that appears on it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much.
Also, on Monday, I filed a motion in limine regarding an expert witness of the defense. We don't need to hear that now, but I just wanted to furnish the case law to the court that's cited in the motion, in the event the court hasn't had an opportunity to review those.
Thank you.
So finally, from the state, we're asking the court to take judicial notice of weather conditions from the evening of February 26, 2012. And there's a report attached to the request from Weather Underground. It documents things like wind direction, wind speed, rainfall amounts, barometric pressure, things of that sort. We're asking the court to take judicial notice of that enter that then later as the next numbered exhibit.
We rejected that.
Okay, we'll take this up then later. I'll hear your objections then. Okay. Was there anything else?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, the jury ready? Let's do it.
Oh, no.
Please be seated. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back. I hope you had a nice 4th of July. While you're getting settled in, I'm going to ask my questions. If your answer is yes to any of my questions, please raise your hand. During the recess, did any of you have any discussions among?
Do solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
That would be Trayvon's mother. Going to put her on
Judge, can we
normal
approach the bench?
Yes, May.
because that is just respectful. Don't want to be rude.
Ma'am, could you state your name for the record, please?
Sabrina Fulton.
And could you spell your first name and last name?
My first name is Sybrina. The last name is Fulton, Fulton.
Are you married, ma'am?
I'm divorced.
And do you have any children?
Yes, I do.
And can you tell us who they are and their names?
My youngest son is Trayvon Benjamin Martin. He's in heaven. And my oldest son is Javaris Lamar Fulton.
Do you live in Miami, ma'am?
Yes, I do.
And have you lived in Miami your entire life?
Yes, I
A
have.
baby man.
And who do you live in Miami with?
My son Javaris Fulton and my brother Ronald Fulton.
Was Trayvon Benjamin Martin your son?
Yes, he was.
Why don't
And
you
was
ask
his
that?
date of birth
Come on.
February the 5th of 1995?
Yes, it is.
Are you
Day
working at
after
this
my
time,
baby.
ma'am?
I am employed. I'm on leave right now.
Okay. Where are you currently employed, or who are you currently employed with where you're on leave?
I actually work for Miami-Dade County Public Housing and Community Development.
Okay. How long have you been working there, ma'am?
I've been with the county for 24 years. I've been with the housing agency for about 10 years.
And prior to going to the housing agency, what did you do?
I did code enforcement for 11 years.
And can you briefly tell us about your education background, ma'am?
I have a bachelor's degree with a
Divorce.
minor in communications from Grambling State University, was half of my courses, and I graduated from Florida Memorial University in Miami.
What was your major? I'm sorry.
My major was English with a minor in communications.
Okay. Was Trayvon Martin right or left-handed?
Trayvon was right-handed.
Trayvon Martin had 2 tattoos on his bodies. Do you know where they were on his body?
He had praying hands on his right upper shoulder with his grandmother's and great-grandmother's name. That's the first tattoo. They were praying hands and they had pearls going through them.
Okay. And do you know where the other tattoo was?
The other tattoo was on his left wrist. He had my name there.
Okay. Prior to your son's death, had you heard him crying or yelling prior to his death? Had you ever heard him while he was growing up, while you were raising him? Had you ever heard him crying or yelling?
Yes.
Okay. I want to play a recording for you, ma'am.
911? Do you need police, fire, medical? Maybe both. I'm not sure. There's just someone screaming outside. Okay, what's the address that they're near? 1211 Twin Trees Lane. Twin Trees Lane? Is this in the Twin Lake Homes in Sanford? Yes. Okay. And is it a male or female? It sounds like a male. And you don't know why? I don't know why. I think they're yelling help, but I don't know. When someone said, say stop. Does he look hurt? I can't see him. I don't want to go out there. I don't know what's going on. So they're sending. So you think he's yelling help? Yes. All right. What is your number? There's gunshots. You just heard gunshots? Yes.
Ma'am, that screaming or yelling, do you recognize that?
Yes.
And who do you recognize that to be, ma'am?
Trayvon Benjamin Martin.
Your Honor, subject to issue we discussed, she's going to be recalled for the questions at this time.
Okay, thank you. Do you want to hold off on your cross until we finish the direct?
I can talk to her now, and then if there's need afterwards, I'll continue that.
Okay, then you may do so.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Firstly, truly apologize for your loss.
Objection, improper, no, not a question.
Okay,
Well, I'm
you need to
sorry.
make a question.
Excuse me?
You need to ask a question.
Will you tell us the first time that you listened to that tape, when you listened to it? Where were you?
I was here in Sanford. I believe it was the mayor's office.
And that was pursuant to a request made by your lawyers to have that tape released, correct?
That's correct.
And my understanding is that happened actually in the mayor's office, correct?
Yes.
And there were no law enforcement officers present?
They were there, but they wasn't actually in the room.
They were actually not allowed in the room, correct?
I don't know about that.
Were you present there when Chief Lee was talking to the mayor and to City Manager Bonaparte about the concern with having the tape released?
Objection is to hearsay.
I asked whether or not she was there.
And your objection?
Question.
My objection is to hearsay what somebody else said in her presence.
It will be sustained as to hearsay. Rephrase your question.
He said,
Were
"Are
you there?"
aware?"
During the time that Chief of Police Lee was having a conversation with the mayor and City Manager Bonaparte.
No.
When the tape was played for you, who played it for you?
I'm not absolutely sure. I'm just trying to remember back. I think it was the mayor.
It was not any law enforcement officer, correct?
It was not.
And who was in the room when that tape was played?
Trayvon's dad, Tracy Martin, Javaris Fulton, Stephanie Sands, Darian Sands, Benjamin Crump, Attorney Natalie Jackson, I believe Mayor Triplett was there, and that there may have been one other person, not absolutely sure, but I think Bonaparte was there.
When you say Bonaparte, that's Sanford City Manager Bonaparte.
Yes,
Was the tape, the first time that you heard that tape, was it played at one time for everybody who was in the room?
yes.
Did any one of those witnesses listen to the tape individually? Or was it all at one time?
I don't know if they listened individually, but that was my first time hearing it.
Well, had anybody indicated to you in that group that they had listened to the tape before?
No,
Did Tracy Martin tell you he listened to the tape before?
no,
Had you had any conversations with him about listening to the tape before that event?
no.
imagine that it was probably one of the worst things that you went through to listen to that tape, correct?
Absolutely.
And that if it was your son, in fact, screaming, as you testified, that would suggest that it was Mr. Zimmerman's fault that led to his death, correct?
Correct.
And if it was not your son screaming, if it was, in fact, George Zimmerman, then you would have to accept the probability that it was Trayvon Martin who caused his own death, correct?
I don't understand your question.
Okay. If you were to listen to that tape and not hear your son's voice, that would mean that it would have been George Zimmerman's voice, correct?
And not hear my son screaming?
Correct.
Is that what you're asking?
Yes, ma'am.
If it wasn't
I
your
heard my son screaming.
I understand. The alternative, the only alternative, would you agree, would be that if it was not your son screaming, that it would be George Zimmerman, correct?
Objection is to speculation.
What is it?
You certainly
It's speculation that it's,
had to hope that that was your son screaming even before you heard it, correct?
I didn't hope for anything. I just simply listened to the tape.
Mm-hmm. And in your mind, as his mother, there was no doubt whatsoever that it was him screaming, correct?
Absolutely.
Did you have any thought in mind how you would react if you believed or didn't hear your son's voice?
I really didn't know what the tape was all about.
And everybody else in the room, when they listened to the tape, who was the first one to react?
I was.
And everybody else then reacted similarly to you, correct?
Well, they also heard the tape themselves.
Correct. And every one of them then told you that they agree with your opinion that it was Trayvon Martin's voice, correct?
They didn't tell me anything.
When you mentioned a moment ago that you didn't know what, nobody spoke to you to tell you that you would soon be listening to screams from the event that led to your son's death?
No.
Mayor Triplett never said anything like that to you?
No.
Nor did any of your other family members?
They hadn't heard the tape at that time.
But the question is whether or not anyone told you to prepare yourself for the event, for the trauma of having to listen to somebody scream moments before your son was shot.
No.
Nobody mentioned that to you.
No.
Tracy Martin never told you about that?
No.
And you just need to listen to it one time, correct?
That's it.
One moment, Joe. Thank you, Your Honor. For now, obviously, based upon potential recall.
Yes, any redirect?
You were asked about hope. Did you hope your son wouldn't be dead, Trayvon Martin? You were asked by defense counsel about hope. Are you still hoping that he would still be alive?
I hope he was still alive.
And I don't know how else to ask this, but I'm asking, did you enjoy listening to that recording?
Absolutely not.
Thank you. That's another question.
Okay, Ms. Fulton? Yes.
It caused another issue, ma'am, and the risk of another objection, I don't mean to put you through this anymore, less necessary than we need to, but you certainly would hope that your son Trayvon Martin did nothing that could have led to his own death, correct?
What was your question again?
You certainly hope, as a mom, you certainly hope that your son Trayvon Martin would not have done anything that would have led to his own death, correct?
What I hope for is that this wouldn't have never happened and he would still be here.
Absolutely.
That's my hope.
Absolutely. And now dealing with the reality that he's no longer here, it is certainly your hope as a mom, hold out hope as long as you can, that Trayvon Martin was in no way responsible for his own death, correct?
I don't believe he was.
I know. And that's the hope that you continue, correct?
I don't understand what you're trying to ask me.
And again, I don't mean to put you through more than we need to. No other questions, Sean.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Fulton, you may step down. You're subject to being recalled. Just so we know, we're having an issue with the evidence locker door, and as soon as that gets resolved, you'll be more than likely recalled. Okay, thank you. State, want to call your next witness, please?
Charles Fulton, please.
That your son doesn't have anything to do with his own death, meaning the evidence that shows that he may or may have attacked Mr. Zimmerman, you don't want that to be true. That is what you don't want to believe. So, that's what he's asking you. So, you're an intelligent lady, so I don't want you to sit there and act like you don't understand the question.
You solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, sir. Can you please tell the members of the jury your name?
Javaris Fulton,
Mr. Fulton, how old are you?
22,
In what city do you currently live?
Miami,
Can I ask you to scoot up just a little bit so we can get you into that microphone? How long have you lived in the Miami area?
all my life.
Are you in school?
Yes.
Where is it that you attend school?
Florida International University,
And what year will you be at FIU this coming fall?
this will be my senior year.
Do you have a major?
Yes.
And what is that?
Information technology.
And are you a full-time student?
Yes.
Are you related to Trayvon Martin?
Yes.
How so?
That's my brother.
And are you older or younger than Trayvon Martin?
Older,
How much older?
about 4.5 years.
What is your mother's name?
Sabrina Fulton.
And what is your, are you related to Tracy Martin?
Yes.
How are you related to Tracy Martin?
That's my dad.
Is he your biological father?
No.
Why do you call him your dad?
But he's the only dad I know. I grew up with him.
Did you and Trayvon Martin grow up together?
Yes.
And how would you describe your relationship with Trayvon Martin growing up? Were y'all close or what?
Yes, we were very close.
Despite the 4 years age difference, did the two of you and Trayvon Martin do things together when you were growing up?
Yes.
Let me turn your attention to the month of February 2012. Were you and Trayvon Martin living together at that time?
Yes.
And who did you live with?
My mom, Sabrina Fulton, my brother, and my uncle.
Let me turn your attention to Sunday, February 26th. Were you aware that Trayvon Martin was with his father, Tracy Martin, in Sanford, Florida that day?
Yes.
Did you go to Sanford that weekend?
No.
At some point, were you notified that Trayvon had been killed in Sanford?
Yes.
And when were you told?
Monday.
And who told you?
My mother.
Since your brother's death, have you had an opportunity to hear a tape that contains screaming and a gunshot?
Yes.
Can you estimate for the members of the jury approximately how many times you've heard that tape?
Anywhere between 10 to 15 times.
And how have you heard it? Have you heard it on a computer, on TV, on the internet, or what?
I've heard it from a computer and from TV.
And do you recognize any voices on that tape?
Yes.
Whose voice do you recognize?
My brother.
Trayvon's?
Yes.
What parts of the recording do you recognize as your brother's voice?
The yelling and the screaming.
Had you ever heard Trayvon Martin yell or scream as the two of you were growing up?
I heard him yell, but not like that, but yes.
Your Honor, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl.
Morning, sir.
Good morning.
You actually were not as certain that it was your brother's voice when you first heard it, though, correct?
Correct.
Matter of fact, you had talked to a reporter about whose voice it may have been, correct?
Yes.
And you told that reporter, Gio Benitez, on March 31st of 2012, that you weren't sure, correct?
Yes.
You said that, honestly, really haven't listened to it. I've heard it. I would think it was my brother, but I'm not completely positive. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
You'll have to answer out now.
Yes.
So having listened to the tape, the first time you listened to it was in the mayor's office in Sanford, correct?
Yes.
And your mom was there, correct?
Yes.
And other family members, and at least 2 attorneys, correct?
Yes.
And during that time, you listened to it along with everybody else, correct?
Yes.
And from having listened to it, it was your thought that it might be Trayvon, correct?
When we heard it in the mayor's office, how do I explain it? I guess I didn't want to believe that it was him. So that's why during that interview, I said I wasn't sure. I guess it was, listening to it was clouded by shock and denial and sadness. I didn't really want to believe that it was him.
Sure. But you recall the date or thereabouts when you listened to that? Middle of March 16th of 2012. Would that be about right?
I don't remember.
Let me ask it this way. It was a full 2 weeks before you had your sit-down interview with the reporter, Benitez, wasn't it?
I'm not sure.
Okay. If I were to, I mentioned a moment ago that the interview was on CBS Miami Channel 4 on March 31st. Have any reason to contest that?
No, I'm not sure of the dates.
Okay. And I mentioned also that the tape, and we'll find this out from other witnesses, that the tape was played for the family on March 16th or thereabouts. So would you have any reason to contest that?
No.
So if that was about 2 weeks, did you listen to the tape in between?
Probably not.
In the 2 weeks?
guessing no.
I'm sorry?
I'm guessing no.
Well, the reporter actually played the tape, didn't he? When you were there?
I'm not sure. Actually, could you?
So I'm confused.
I'm not sure of the time you're talking about anymore.
Okay. Let me ask it this way then. Do you
So you
recall
talked to a
sitting down
reporter
with
before you even heard the tape. in
Gio
the mayor's office?
Benitez, a reporter for CBS Miami Channel 4, and talking to him about who you thought may or may not have been on the tape?
So when was the tape
Yes.
actually released
Do you
into
remember
the
that event?
media?
I remember.
I'm sorry?
Yes, I remember.
And that was the event I talked about earlier, where your first answer to him, his question was, who did you hear crying for help? You remember that question? No?
I don't remember the question.
Okay. Then what I'd like to do, with the court's indulgence, is to play that recording for you and ask if you remember the call at that point, or the TV program at that point.
Judge, I object to that.
I'm going to object to hearsay.
You would need to do that first outside the presence of the jury for
I
that
understand.
purpose. So ladies and gentlemen, if you'll please put your notepads face down.
Just going to let
Follow
him
Deputy
do
Jarvis
it.
back into the jury room. Please be seated.
And just so we are clear on, I know that you have previous rulings suggested that it needs to be played outside the jury. I think that he has now denied the question and answer, and I think it is proper impeachment to play his own words
I
for the
think he
jury.
said he wasn't sure, and if the rules of impeachment require that you show the witness the statement or let them listen to the statement, and that's done to themselves, and since it's going to be played in open court, the jury needed to be removed. So you can play it for him, and we go from there.
Yes, Your Honor.
And Judge, just for the record, I believe the witness's answer was that he told the reporter that he wasn't positive it was his brother's voice. So I think this is not going to be proper impeachment because I think it's consistent with what he said in court.
Let him listen to it.
Yeah. What you afraid of, sir?
Obviously, you heard those calls.
It has video. I don't know that it's necessary for the witness to see the video. So rather than go through warming up the
Just go ahead and play
projector.
it, yeah.
Okay.
Obviously, you heard those calls, and I know that you mentioned the cries for help. When you heard those calls and those cries for help, who did you hear crying for help?
I'm not sure. Honestly, I don't really haven't even listened to them that good. So like, I've heard it, but my brother, but I'm not completely positive.
For these purposes, does that assist you in the conversation you had with Gio Benitez?
Yes.
That was, of course, your voice, correct?
Yes.
And you did say to him the words, "I'm not sure."
Yes.
So at that, I think that is for the purpose of
He did say that.
impeachment, but I am going to renew my request that based upon his equivocation concerning his answers to Mr.
Well, I need to hear his answer to the original question because the state is saying that he answered similarly. So if the court reporter could take a moment to read it back.
And as she's doing that, I think when I said to him his words, he said yes. But then when I asked him again later, so I think the later question is the more relevant one, he said, "I really don't remember." And it was for that reason that I broke and wanted to remind him. So yes, the first question he did, but then he equivocated towards the end of his testimony.
Judge, I think his answer of "I don't know" was, do you remember the reporter asking you the question, that particular question? But he did not equivocate about what his answer was. He said his answer was he wasn't sure at the time, which is what he said here today.
Thank you. If y'all will just not say anything so the court reporter can look back.
Yeah. Why don't you go do that?
Second, sure. What question you're referring to? I'll just read this question. Good morning, sir.
Not to interrupt you, I think it was literally that question. It was the first question I asked.
Okay. And question, you actually were not as certain that it was your brother's voice when you first heard it though, correct? Answer, correct. Question, as a matter of fact, you had talked to a reporter about whose voice it may have been, correct? Answer, yes. Want me to keep going?
Yes, I want,
Question, and you told that reporter, Gio Benitez, on March 3rd, 2012, that you weren't sure, correct? Answer, yes. Question, you said that honestly, well, you haven't listened to it. I heard it, I would think it was my brother, but I'm not completely positive, correct? Answer, uh-huh. Question, you have to answer out loud. Answer, yes.
this would be impeachment of a collateral matter as to whether or not the question was asked, but his answer is the same.
I would ask that the court reporter, my concern was that he equivocated when I asked him just at the end of the examination before he took a break. So maybe if we can have the last 3 or 4 questions, just
Okay.
so it's in context.
I'm not so quite sure what question you want. I'll just read this. Okay, let me ask it this way. When do you recall sitting down with Giovanni Benitez, a reporter for CBS Miami Channel 4, and talking to him about who you thought may or may not have been on this tape? Answer, yes. Question, do you remember that event? Answer, I remember. Question, I'm sorry? Answer, yes, I remember it. Question, that was the event I talked about earlier where your first answer to him, his question was, who did you hear crying for help? Do you remember that question? Answer, I don't remember the question. And then he wanted to play the tape.
So whether he remembered the question is a collateral matter, his answer was the same, that he told the reporter that he wasn't sure, whatever words were used. So that's not necessarily, that's not impeachment, it's a collateral matter of what the reporter may have asked. His answer did not differ.
And I would renew my request that it be played in front of the jury for a couple of reasons. One, his equivocation just now, and two,
I mean, his
that
answer
evidence
didn't
actually
change.
is his
It's
own
just the
words
fact that he
spoke
didn't
to the
know.
reporter. It shows his inflection, it shows his hesitation, and rather than having just the colloquy between.
What is the purpose? Is it for impeachment? Because the court's finding it's not impeachment. Is there
It's
another
not
legal basis
impeachment.
for playing that recording?
It
It's
is
the best
because he
evidence of
heard
the event that
the
happened back then, Your
video
Honor, and even if he testified to it
prior
now, he's
to
testifying,
then.
quite honestly, in a very
He's trying to say
different,
that he was shocked and
attitude and
didn't
inquiry
know.
That's
than it
not a
showed.
legal basis.
Understand the court's concern.
Okay, so for impeachment purposes, no, it may not be played because his answer is the same today as it was then, so that's not impeachment. His not remembering the reporter's question is a collateral matter because it's not the question that matters, it's the answer that's given. So your request is, the objection is sustained.
For record purposes, I would like to have this clip, which we just played, and marked as an exhibit.
Of course, it would come in as, is it double J? Not come in, but it'll be marked as double J. Okay, I hear the locksmiths are here and the jury's already out, so let's take a brief recess. Go back to where you were, but you cannot discuss your testimony with anybody, okay? All right. Court will be in recess until further notice. Have Mr. Fulton come back onto the stand.
Grace, did you take that? We are.
Very frantic, Ron.
Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the extended break, but we were having some technical difficulties in the courtroom that have now been resolved. You may proceed.
Thank you. Okay, good morning, sir. When we took a break, I was asking you your memory of the question that Mr. Benitez asked you. And I think what you said was you didn't remember the question specifically. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. But leading up to that, we had talked about the fact that you had listened to the tape in the mayor's office in Sanford sometime a couple of weeks before. Do you agree?
Yes.
And that was with all the other family members.
Yes.
And the civil attorneys representing the family, civil attorneys representing the family, Ben Crump and Natalie Jackson, correct?
Yes.
Okay. You actually listened to it more than once that day. You listened to it at least twice, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And it was even played for other family members more often than twice, right?
I'm
While
not
you were
aware
there.
of that.
Okay. You don't recall whether or not you had listened to it between the first two times you heard it in the mayor's office and your conversation with Mr. Benitez?
I don't remember. Yeah. I don't remember.
It was, of course, available to you, correct?
What do you mean by that?
Well, at that point, the city of Sanford made the decision to release the calls to the general public, right?
I don't remember, but I never had the tapes myself.
Okay. Did there ever come a time in between the first two times that you heard it and your conversation with Mr. Benitez that you wanted to listen to it again, but couldn't?
Say it again.
Okay. In the 2-week period between the first two times you listened to it, the time you talked to Mr. Benitez about that, during that period of time, did you ever ask someone to listen to it again and be denied?
No.
So in your mind, listening to it the first two times was what you needed to hear, correct?
Not what I needed, but I didn't want to listen to them again.
Okay. And yet, your answers earlier remain the same, of course. You said what you said to Mr. Benitez about not being sure who it was on the tape, correct?
Yes.
And though you said a moment ago that you didn't want to listen to it more, you actually have listened to it many more times since, haven't you?
Yes.
Okay. Was there a
didn't need to listen
reason
to it
why
more that
in between
day.
the first 2 weeks you didn't want to listen to it, but were okay with listening to it 10 or 15 times afterwards?
Yeah. It's emotional. I didn't want to listen to them again.
But you have listened to it at least 10 times since, correct?
Yeah. Well, no, in total 10 times. So if that was 2, maybe 8 separate occasions.
And you said a moment ago that you lived in the house with Sabrina Fulton and Trayvon Martin, correct?
Yes.
Tracy was not living there at that point, though, correct?
No.
So when you say that you consider Tracy Martin to be your dad, he actually left the home a long, long time ago, correct?
Yes.
How old were you when he actually left the home?
Unless in 9 or 10.
And that would have put Trayvon at approximately what age, Trayvon Martin?
If I was 9, he might have been 5.
You, the two of you didn't really hang out together, did you? You and Trayvon Martin?
Yes. But, I mean, it depends what you're talking about.
Okay. You didn't have the same friends, correct?
No.
So that if you were to go out somewhere, you might go out and do something with your set of friends, and he would go out and do something with his set of friends.
Correct.
Certainly as brothers, I think you said you would do things together, whatever that might be, correct? But you didn't run in the same circles, did you?
No.
You didn't interact with him on Facebook?
Not really, no.
Nor on Twitter?
No.
But you did interact, of course, with your other friends and on those social media sites, correct?
Occasionally, yes.
I'm going to have a moment, Nora. And when Tracy Martin left the home, he actually got remarried, didn't
Yes, some years later, yes.
he? And it was Trayvon Martin then spending a lot of time, the new wife was Alicia, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Did you spend a lot of time with your dad over at that house?
Yes.
Okay. And did Trayvon Martin as well spend a lot of time over at that house?
Yes.
He was more living there a lot of the time in the last few years, wasn't he?
Not really.
What do you mean by that?
He, well, how it went, let me see, I guess growing up, we usually spent the weekends over there, or whenever we wanted, I guess, we could go over. And towards the end, I don't know, it was about the same.
Okay, thank you. Nothing further.
Thank you. Any redirect?
Thank you. Mr. Fulton, you were asked about listening to that 911 call with your brother's screams on it for the first time at the mayor's office. Was that emotionally difficult for you to hear?
Yes.
Were you still sort of in denial about your brother's death at that point?
Yes.
And then you don't recall listening to that tape again between the time you heard it at the mayor's office and the interview that you were asked about. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
But you did tell the interviewer that you would like to think it's your brother's voice, but you weren't completely positive. Is that what you told him?
Yes.
And then,
I'm sorry.
and then since that time of the interview, you had an opportunity, you said 8, possibly more times to listen to it.
Yes.
You now believe it's Trayvon Martin's voice yelling for help on the tape?
Yes.
You were asked about growing up. How old were you approximately when your mother, Sabrina Fulton, and Tracy Martin divorced?
About 9.
And as I understood what you said, after that point, you primarily lived with your mother, but you would visit Tracy Martin on the weekends
Yes.
and any other time you wanted to?
Yes.
And would Trayvon go with you to Tracy Martin's house to visit?
Yes.
You now go to FIU, correct?
Yes.
Where did you go before that? Did you go to a different college?
Yes. I went to FAMU.
And where was that located?
Tallahassee.
All right. When you were at FAMU in Tallahassee, would you come home and stay with your mother and Trayvon Martin?
Yes.
Were there occasions that Trayvon Martin your brother went to visit you in Tallahassee when you were in school there?
Yes,
Okay, but back in, I guess, the fall of 11 and the first months of 2012, you were actually at FIU back in Miami.
yes.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Fulton be excused.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much, sir. You may be excused. State, please call your next witness.
State would recall Sabrina Fulton.
What? For what?
Your Honor, I did approach this briefly on.
Yes, and Ms. Fulton, you're still under oath, so we don't need to swear you in again. Please approach.
Maybe you do. I don't know. The hell? What kind of shit is that? Oh no. Do anything here? What do we got? Oh, for Pete's sake. Well, it didn't work out. Okay. Okay. Never mind. Just get rid of that. What are we doing? Just sitting here. I'm saying nothing. What does this have to do with things?
9, and do you recognize?
Please be seated. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. You may proceed. Yes, you may.
Ms. Fulton, I want to show you part of State's Exhibit 149, and do you recognize this button here?
Yes,
And is this a button that your son always wore, Mr. Trayvon Martin always wore?
yes.
Thank you. No further questions.
Any cross?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. May Ms. Fulton be excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you very much.
What was that for?
Call your next witness,
State
please.
would call Dr. Val.
I don't understand what the point of that was. What does the button, significance of the button have to do with anything? I don't get it. Eyes twitching. This is so annoying.
Shipping bar, SHIPPING PINGBAO.
What is your occupation, sir?
I'm the Associate Medical Examiner in Volusia and Seminole counties.
And if you could just
Medical
briefly
examiner.
tell us about your specialty, what area of practice you have, and your education background
Okay.
and training.
I received my medical degree in China, came to United States in 1992 when I was 29 years old to pursue American dream. I did my pathology
American
training in Birmingham, Alabama, and I finished
Birmingham,
my
Alabama.
forensic pathology fellowship.
He is.
Cool.
Autopsy means about
So you did the
150 to 200 homicides. I did about 20 court testimonies or depositions. In the last 5 years, I have done about 300 to
Damn.
700 cases a year.
Jesus.
And you, as you stated, you previously testified in Florida as an expert. Is that correct?
Yes,
Well,
both
this time I tended the
Texas
witness.
and Florida.
This time I tended the witness as an expert in forensic pathology.
Can they so testify?
I don't have.
Oh, so he didn't even.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Ballard, we can move into what you did in this particular case. Did you perform an autopsy on a person later identified to you as Trayvon Martin under your medical examiner number 12-24-043?
Yes.
And where was the autopsy performed, Dr. Ballard?
Where? Or
Yes,
where?
sir.
Yeah, we did autopsy
All over his body.
on February 27th, 2012. I started autopsy at 10:30 p.m.
Damn. Very nice.
After autopsy, I typed autopsy report, start from 4:06 p.m. I finished my autopsy report at 5:10 p.m. same day.
And was that done at the medical examiner's office in Volusia County?
Yes, in Daytona Beach.
Did you determine the cause of death, sir?
Yes,
And what was the cause of death?
the cause of death is gunshot wound of chest.
And what was the manner of death, sir?
The manner of death is homicide, meaning he was killed by another person.
If you could, tell us what Trayvon Martin's height and weight was, sir. What was his height?
I would like to
5'11".
present the jury how I did autopsy from the
Okay, yeah,
morning.
please.
Trayvon Martin came to my office as unidentified human body. He was not identified at the time. All we know, he was a black boy. He was shot. He's dead. There is no name, no age. The first thing in the morning, we did an X-ray, tried to locate the bullets or fragments of bullet. We found out he had some fragments at the lower chest.
So think about this. This happens. This young man was shot and killed not far from where his dad lives. Okay? Not far. Now, mind you, dad and stepmom were out for the evening. Don't know where they went. That wasn't called into question. Not yet, anyway. But he wasn't identified until the next day. Till the next day. I'm sorry. 17-year-old child. Not a man yet. Shouldn't be able to just roam the streets alone. Nobody identifies him until the next day. He has no ID. He has no way of anybody getting to. Nobody called on him. Nobody called the police looking for him. Nobody called hospitals looking for an unidentified young black male. Are you kidding me? Like, okay, I'll give it to mom. She wasn't there. she trusts Dad to know where he is. I bet you she had some words for him. I could not. My son goes to work, he goes to school, he goes the places that he goes. I know where I hope he tells me where he goes and where he doesn't. But these days, this day and age, I do have, for now, because he is 16 and he's a brand new driver. Excuse me, I keep tabs on him. I do. And he has an ID. He carries an ID. He has my number in his phone. It's under, like, he has it under birth giver. But I feel like they could understand that that is Mom. You know, he would not go unidentified for at least 12 hours because, you know, if it happened at 6 o'clock on the 26th and, you know, offices don't open until 7, 8 o'clock, he wouldn't go unidentified that long. I promise you. Even his dad. His dad is not that attentive. I don't know. I can't even promise that. But on my watch, he would not go that long. That's crazy to me. This is crazy to me. Why is that not being addressed? Why? You see, Vince tried to pull it up and say, well, if it wasn't George screaming, then you'd have to admit, or if it wasn't Trayvon screaming, you'd have to admit that it was George screaming and it was really Trayvon beating the shit out of him. But she acted like she couldn't understand what the hell he was getting at.
His body was sealed in a plastic bag with number 0000517. After we look at X-ray, so we opened the bag. We saw a black boy, 71 inches long,
Say black male.
158 pounds.
158
He had a
pounds.
defect, a hole on the anterior sweatshirt with blood. Under the sweatshirt, there was another t-shirt. Again, there was blood, the defect, and the suit, S-O-O-T, suit. After we removed the clothes, we saw a defect on his left lower chest, 3/8 inch diameter, round, with soot, S-O-O-T, with ring abrasion around wound with stippling, also called powder tattooing. After we removed the skin, there was defect between left anterior number 5 and the number 6 ribs. So the bullet went through directly from anterior to posterior through anterior pericardial sac, which is the fiber tissue around the heart, through right ventricle of the heart,
Rupture.
anterior right ventricle of the heart, through posterior right ventricle of the heart, through posterior pericardial sac. At that point, the bullet separated. The lead core of the bullet was recovered in the pericardial sac behind right ventricle. The 2 fragments of the jacket
Not magical,
went
or
right
ventricle.
through his right lower lobe of the lung. We have 3 lobes on the right, 2 lobes on the right. The bullet went through the right lower lobe of the lung. The 2 fragments was recovered
So it
in
went
the
through his heart
right
and his
pleural
lung.
cavity. At that point, Trevor Martin, I believe, was still alive. His heart was still beating. Every time his heart was beating, some of the blood will go from right ventricle to the pulmonary artery to the lung and supply his brain. I believe it is my opinion that he was still alive, he was still in pain, he was still in suffering.
Objection, Your Honor. That's not a relevant issue at this time.
It's
It's
relevant.
simply an emotional
Okay, just a
appeal.
second, I'm sorry, your objection is relevance? Okay, overruled.
He's in suffering, he's in pain.
Well, then I would object to speculation then.
No, it's
And
my
it's
opinion.
not-
not a
Wait, wait.
speculation.
And it's
When there's
not,
an objection, I have to rule on it. Okay, so please, just wait. If council, please approach.
Stop talking.
So
Mr. Sir.
Wait a moment.
One day
Wants to
after
tell his
autopsy,
story.
Okay, the objection is sustained. You may proceed.
Dr. Bell, I'm going to ask you questions and just answer my questions if you could, okay?
okay,
Let's go back to, you mentioned the autopsy. You determined Trayvon Martin's height and weight. Did you say he was 5'11" and 158 pounds? Is that correct?
yes, in my autopsy report is 71 inches, which is 5 feet and 11 inches.
Okay. And when you say he's 5'11" or 71 inches, is there actually a measurement? Is the body put on a table and there's
Yeah.
actually something that measures it?
It's a length. We measure the body in length because the dead man cannot stand. It's
Okay.
not height.
Okay, so in other words, a body after the person dies.
He wanted
does
to
not
tell his
grow or
story the
anything,
way
or
he
does
wanted to
not
tell
shrink,
his
it just
story.
stays the same?
Yes,
I wonder if he wrote a book about this.
Now, did you determine his age as being 17 years old, sir?
one day after autopsy, he was identified by his father. At that point, February 28th, 2012.
And so
He
he was
was
17
identified.
years old?
Yes,
Okay. And was his date of birth that you determined was February the 5th of 1995?
yes, February 5th, 1995.
Okay. Dr. Val, I'm going to show you some photographs, and before I get to this, you briefly mentioned, does your office have a medical examiner investigator go out to the actual scene where the shooting is?
Yes,
Okay, and did one go in this case?
yes,
Okay. And does the investigator make sure that the body is sealed in a bag that we're going to show photographs of?
yes,
And when you perform the autopsy, do you have assistants helping you? Specifically,
Yes.
in this case, 2 assistants?
I have 2 assistants.
Okay. And in terms of the autopsy that you're going to talk about, the assistants work under your supervision and they're all in the same area as you?
Yes,
Okay. And are photographs taken to document the relevant evidence that you will be talking to the jury about?
yes,
Okay. All right, let's go, if we could, Dr. Val, I'm going to show you State Exhibit 81. Do you recognize that photograph, sir?
yes.
And what is that a photograph of, sir?
Can I have something to point to?
Oh, I apologize.
jury?
We need a pointer. Thank you, Mr. Guy. It's a little button right here. Matt, what's the witness on? Right here.
This is a photo of,
Sorry to interrupt. May I have the physical exhibit so that I can follow along with what's coming? Are these all in evidence already?
Are
The photos, are
Yeah,
they?
they're in evidence.
Sir, just because they're in evidence doesn't mean he physically
So
has it.
there may be-
So
They're right there if you would like to look through them or keep them at your desk as long as the clerk gets them back.
As the court's aware, we try to expedite things by,
I don't need
Pre-marking.
to speak, if you need those, you can just look through and take them back to the,
Should be 81 through 108.
okay? You're welcome.
you need more time? State's Exhibit 181, I'm sorry, 81, I apologize. Do you recognize that? And tell us what that photograph depicts.
Okay. This is a photo of plastic bag carried Trayvon Martin.
Okay. And would this be the head part up over
the
here?
head? 12 means 2012, year of 2012. 24 means Seminole County. 043 means this is 43 cases from the year.
Okay.
150 pound.
All right. Let me show you State's Exhibit 82. What is this part of the, what does this photograph show?
Okay, this one shows black male, case number, unidentified, number 3. This is, again, the case number. This is F, feet.
Okay. And then State's Exhibit 83, is that a,
This is another view of this body bag,
okay.
feet, and the case number.
Okay. And State's Exhibit 84, what does that photograph show, sir?
This is seal, VCME, Volusia County Medical Examiner, seal number 0000517. This is case number. Nobody can open the bag before me look at it.
Okay. So in other words, when the bag comes, let me go back a second to 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, the bag itself is sealed where the body is, Trayvon bodies is sealed in that container. It comes to your office and you all actually cut that or open that up. Is that correct?
Yes.
Oh, y'all, this.
Let me show you State
gets
Exhibit
good.
99. You previously talked about an x-ray. Tell us,
Just,
when you said x-ray, is that x-ray taken before the body is removed from the bag?
No, before the body was removed from the bag, we took the x-ray, tried to locate the bullet or fragments. This is one of them, this spine is right. There is a fragment in the area of the heart.
Okay.
There are 2 fragments in the area of the right lung. This is another view of x-ray spine. It's the stomach, the colon, arm is right. Again, you can see this lead core in the area of the heart and the 2 more fragments of jacket in the area of the lung.
When the body comes to you, Dr. Bao, is this the photograph showing how the body is exactly in terms of clothing that Trayvon Martin was wearing, State's Exhibit 85?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is the first photo we took, case number, the defect on the sweatshirt with some debris, and this is blue plastic bag.
Okay. And when you keep referring to defect, you're talking about what ends up killing him in terms of the gunshot wound. This is showing the hole.
Yeah, defect, the street name means the hole.
Okay. State's Exhibit 86, what does that photograph show, Dr. Bao?
This is another view of his body, the defect here, case number, his hand, and 2 legs.
So at this point, you're trying to photograph, just showing the legs or part of the leg, is that correct?
Yeah, normally we use 3 photos to cover the whole body.
Okay. And State's Exhibit 87, does that show well, tell us what it shows, sorry.
Okay, this is another view of Trayvon Martin, case number, and his shoes and the pants.
State's Exhibit 101, and I guess I apologize, after the body comes in, are the clothing then removed and you observe that and then you go to the body itself?
Yes.
Okay. State's Exhibit 101, what does that photograph show?
This is sweatshirt, the hoodie sweatshirt. The orange marker point to the defect on the left chest. Again,
State's Exhibit 102, is that a close-up of what you refer to as a defect or the hole that caused the gunshot wound?
yes, caused by gunshot wound.
Okay. State Exhibit 103, what does that photograph show?
This is the back view of hoodie sweatshirt. Appears to be wet.
State Exhibit 104, what does that photograph show, Dr. Bao?
This is another sweatshirt under the hoodie sweatshirt. You see this, the blood, the defect,
Yeah.
the marker. This, the black, appears to be soot, S-O-O-T, soot. Again, we have case number.
All right. And Dr. Bao, just to make sure that the State Exhibit, I'm going back to State Exhibit 85. Was that sweatshirt that we just talked about underneath this hoodie or hoodie
Yes.
sweatshirt?
Yes.
And State Exhibit 04, is that the front? State Exhibit 105, what does that photograph show, sir?
This is just a close-up of previous one. Again, this we can see better. The defect, the blood, and the soot, which is burned powder from the gun.
State Exhibit 106, what does that photograph show, Dr. Bao?
This is the back view of shirt. There's no defect, which means there's no exit wound.
State Exhibit 107, what does that photograph show?
This is pants. And some debris.
Okay. And is that the front part of the
Yeah,
pants?
front view.
State Exhibit 108, what does that show?
It's the back view of the pants.
State Exhibit 88, what does that photograph show?
This is Trevor Martin, 17 years old.
Okay. And is that a photograph just showing the upper part of his body?
Yeah, normally we have 3 photos. This photo show from head to the abdomen.
Okay.
There
And
is
obviously,
defect.
this right here is just for the photography purpose, it's been blacked out, is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
there is a defect left lower chest. Other than that, Trevor Martin was healthy. There is no disease, no injury. Other than gunshot wound.
Okay. And you stated, I believe, he weighed 150.
Yes, we weigh by ourselves.
Okay. State Exhibit 89, what does that photograph
This
show?
is another view of Trevor Martin from the chest to the knee. Again, we can show the defect. And this defect, there's no disease, there's no injury.
Okay. While we have this photograph here, Dr. Bao, I'm going to circle the hands. Did you make observations as to the hands, sir?
Yes,
Okay. Did you observe any blood? And we're going to talk about an injury that you're going to talk about it in the left hand. But other than that, did you observe any blood on the hands?
yeah, other than some small aberrations on left fifth finger and the left fourth finger. There is no other injury, no other disease.
Okay. And did you observe any blood on the hands at all?
No.
State Exhibit 90, what is that photograph?
This is a view of Trevor Martin from the thigh to the feet. Again, there is no disease, no injury.
Dr. Bao, State Exhibit 91, what does that photograph show?
This is the back view of Trevor Martin from to this area. There's no disease, there's no injury.
State Exhibit 92, what is that photograph?
This is another view of Trevor Martin's back. There's no disease, there's no injury.
And State Exhibit 93, what does that photograph show, Dr. Bao?
This is the third view of Trevor Martin's back from the thigh to the feet. Again, there's no disease, there's no injury.
Dr. Bao, I'm now showing you State Exhibit 94. What does that photograph show, sir?
This photograph shows the defect on the left lower chest,
Okay. And is there,
3/8 inch.
I apologize, go ahead.
3/8 inch diameter. 3/8 inch diameter round defect. We can use the close-up one.
Yes, sir, I'm coming to that one yet. But before I get into that, you have a measuring thing just to show where the injury is so that people can see it and also
Yeah.
the measurement itself.
This one has both the scale and the case number.
Let me show you State Exhibit 95. Tell us what State Exhibit 95, what that photograph shows, Dr. Bao.
This photograph shows the defect with ring aberration around the defect, which consistent with entrance wound. Also, we can see the soot, S-O-O-T, and a 2x2 inch area of stippling, also called powder tattooing, which is punctuating aberrations caused by unburned powder from the gun.
And Dr. Bao, how can you positively say that what I'm circling right here is the entrance wound, the gunshot wound? How can you say that that's the entrance wound?
Because the entrance wound is different from exit wound. Exit wound normally elongated, and normally there's no soot, no stippling, This case is one of the easiest case in my office. There is no exit wound, has to be entrance wound.
So in other words, you find the fragments or the bullet inside his body if there's no exit.
Yeah, I have 100% confidence. I look at this wound, I can make judgment. This is entrance wound of intermediate range in first 3 seconds.
Intermediate range.
In first 3 seconds, when I look at this wound with 100% confidence.
And Dr. Bauer, I believe that's even a closer up of that gunshot wound. I'm sorry, State Exhibit 96. Tell us if you can, you got the green marker. Go ahead and tell us.
This is the fat, adipose fat tissue under the skin. Again, this is entrance wound with stippling and soot, consistent with entrance wound.
Okay. And I'm going to ask you in a few minutes about the suit, but is this what you're talking about when you say soot or stippling?
The black one, okay. The black one, these are soot.
Okay.
These punctuating aberrations are stippling.
And is that from the shooting of the gun in terms
Yes.
of the bullet? Okay.
Yes.
State's Exhibit number 97. What does that photograph show?
This superficial aberration caused by blunt force trauma, 1/4 by 1/8 inch aberration on left fourth finger.
And you also find something on the,
I even cannot use ruler. Two of them much less than 1/16 inch, two small things on left fifth finger.
other than the gunshot wound that you talked about, which I'm going back for the record, State Exhibit number 96, number 97, the injuries that you described to the left, I believe, is this the left hand, by the way?
Yes, left hand.
Okay. Did you find any other injury in any other part of his body? In other words, did you find any injuries to his right hand at all?
No.
Now, State Exhibit 100, is this what you ended up recovering from the body, sir?
This is lead core from bullet. I recovered this one, the pericardial sac behind right ventricle of the heart.
Okay.
These two are fragments of jacket was recovered in the right pleural cavity behind right of the lung. Okay. Went straight, directly from the front to the back
Straight to the front to the back.
with perforations of
The heart and the lung.
anterior wall of the space between fifth and sixth through the pericardial sac, went through right ventricle of the heart, went through the posterior wall of right ventricle of the heart. We recovered 1,700 milliliters of blood in the right pleural cavity, 1,000 milliliters of blood in the left pleural cavity. I believe he was alive for 1 to 10 minutes after he was shot. His
Bold
heart was beating
statement.
until there was no blood left. At the point,
Oh no.
holes on the right ventricle of the heart. There's no chance he can survive. No chance, zero.
And if you could, in terms of the track of the bullet, does it come straight, either going up or down on the body? And I know you'd have to look at the anatomically correct, but
But in my opinion, it's straight from the front to the back.
so it's a straight shot right into the heart, basically.
Yes.
And how for 10 minutes?
Mentioned already, and I want you to, if you could, explain to the jury when you say stippling and soot, what you mean. And I'll
We just
progress to
it is
State Exhibit number 96, going back to that. If
glossed
you
over.
could, explain it, if you could, what we mean by stippling and soot, what we mean by that.
The meaning of soot and stippling,
Specialized and
intermediate range. In my autopsy report, I give 3 ranges of shooting: contact, intermediate, and
Literally, when you say contact,
indeterminate.
the muzzle. Let's talk about contact would be what? Literally, when you say contact, the muzzle is around the skin itself?
Contact is complete. Contact entrance wound is complete from this one. In my office, contact entrance wound is completely different from this.
Okay, so this is
Intermediate
not a
range.
contact wound to the
Yes.
skin itself.
Yeah, I look at contact entry wound almost every day in my office. If contact will be skin laceration, if there is close, in this case will be, I have 100% confidence this is intermediate range of shooting.
Okay, and when you say intermediate range, what is that range? Are you able to determine or give your opinion as to what the range could be?
By definition,
Yes, sir.
intermediate range is when you see the stippling. So if your stippling is intermediate range, if it's intermediate range, you need to see the stippling.
Okay. In terms of the range, what would be the range that you would opine is consistent with this, sir?
I look at many books. I try to find out what's the range for intermediate range.
And is that 0.4?
First, I need to explain the jury.
Yeah, please explain to the jury.
The range of shooting is my opinion, not the fact. The fact is there is defect on the chest, there is soot, there is stippling. Use this fact, I have my opinion. The fact is different from opinion. For the fact, there is no right or wrong, just truth or false.
To the witness's characterization of facts versus opinion.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question specifically. I'll be glad to read.
The fact opinion is very in the justice system.
Hold on, Dr. Bowell.
You have to go ahead and let Mr. De Leon ask the question, sir.
Okay. Let me just ask you a question.
Yes.
Didn't know he
There
wants
are
to get out
different
what he
ranges in
wants to
terms
say.
of, you mentioned contact, and then there's intermediate, and does that range from 0.4 inches to up to 4 feet?
Yes.
Okay.
I
and
look
then
at many
there's longer
books.
than that.
The closest in the book
Okay.
is
And I'm going to ask you about the close in a minute.
the range is not it's opinion.
Now, you're going to have to wait for Mr. De Leon to ask you a question and then provide the answer. Thank you.
Dr. Bowell, and we're going to get into, but assuming there was no close,
Mhm.
then you have the intermediate range, which is 0.4 inches to up to 4 feet. Is that correct?
Yes, I did not measure them.
Okay.
All I have is from the book.
Yes, sir.
It's my opinion.
Yes, sir. And I'm going to get into your opinion, explaining to the jury.
Yeah,
But
yeah, very important.
yes, sir. Did you determine that since he was wearing clothes, this would be called an what's the word?
Intermediate or intermediary target. Okay, there are two different terms.
Tell us about those if you could.
Okay. Intermediary target, INTERMEDIAR. Target means the object between the bullet and the target, including the clothing, materials in the pocket. In other case, could be car windows, could be arms. Intermediary target, it is more difficult to determine the range of.
So in this case, you had clothing.
Yeah.
Shirts that were acting as that, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And does that help you account why you're saying in terms of the range that served as an in-between the bullet or the muzzle of the gun and the skin, is that correct?
No,
The clothing?
no, it's different.
Yeah.
The clothing will block some soot and some from the gunshot. I want to explain to you how I did this autopsy, how I determined the range.
Yes, sir. Please
The-
explain to the
The
jury. how you got
intermediate
there.
range, when I say intermediate range, is by definition, it's not by measurement. There's no just opinion.
Sure. So you're just going on what is classified as intermediate, what that means.
Yeah, by definition of intermediate range.
You're not actually there. Or anything like that.
Nobody can use the eye in the range. There's no such thing.
Okay. Now, you mentioned the clothing serving as some barrier between the muzzle of the gun and the body itself. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, based on your examination of the clothing and then also the body, do you believe there was contact with the clothing by the muzzle of the? Tell us about that.
Yeah, contact including loose contact and hard contact, HARD. If it was hard contact, I would see the imprint of fiber of the clothes over here. So you now see that. So I believe this is loose contact to the clothes, which cause the stippling pattern on the skin.
And can you determine how loose it was other than it was just loose? Can you?
Just
Okay.
loose contact.
Okay. Now, how about the fact that you had two sweatshirts, what's been referred to as the hoodie, and then underneath another sweatshirt? Does that have an additional barrier, I guess, in terms of?
I can't tell.
Okay. I want to talk about the position of the body when shot.
Okay.
You know, in the movies, they say, oh, we can tell you exactly how it happened. Are you able, based on the autopsy, able to say exactly the position that Trayvon Martin was in terms of whether he was standing up, sitting, lying down, above somebody, below somebody? Are you able to say unequivocally position of the body when he was shot?
I have no fact. I have zero opinion.
Okay. Or can you say unequivocally that he was shot from the front? In other words, that the gun was in front of him when he was shot?
Yes, I do that.
Okay. Is there any dispute about that?
No.
Now, I want to talk about how long Trayvon Martin was possibly alive. In terms of, you've already opined about that, but I want to explore that a little bit more by some questions. In terms of, thank you, Your Honor. In terms of his death immediate, and I'll talk about whether he went unconscious or not. Do you understand?
Okay.
My question is, when he
How I have opinion. Opinion is based on the fact, and my.
Oh my goodness.
you're talking about other autopsies you've done in your
Yes.
life. Okay.
I believe Trayvon Martin was alive for 1 to 10 minutes after he was shot.
And so you're going to give a range in terms of possibly the longest.
Yeah,
Is that
I
correct?
give the error of a margin of error.
Okay.
The reason I give 10 minutes because just 3 weeks when you
Dr.
are,
Bell, let me stop you. They don't need to know about your other, but you've got some prior cases that you've done. Oh, we'll leave it at that. That's fine.
okay, because that's
Your opinion is based on your experience.
Yeah.
Okay. We just can't get into specifics, but the jury understands that. Let me ask you another question about
Okay.
that. Are you saying that his brain is still technically alive?
Yes.
That's what's still alive in terms of his brain. So he can still feel, in other words.
Yes.
Okay. And are you saying that he could move or he couldn't in terms of, can you say one way or the other?
From my experience, another autopsy we did 3 weeks ago, I don't believe he can move.
Okay. All right. Let me go to the bullet fragments that you talked about already. Your Honor, may I approach a witness? Oh, sure. All right, the court. Judge, he needs to change paper. Dr. Bao, I'm showing you State Exhibit 165. Do you recognize that, sir?
Yes.
And what is State Exhibit 165?
Yeah, we recovers the fragments of bullet from Trayvon's body, the lead core and the piece of jacket.
So that is one exhibit, is that correct?
Yes.
Publish that to the jury.
Yes, you may.
Are we done? Are we done? Are we done? Are we done? It's bothersome. Okay, well, right,
The question is, Gable, when this occurred, and tell us in terms of
oh no, it broke it. Broke it.
when this occurred, when this injury could have occurred.
This could have occurred 2 hours before he died. Could have happened right after shooting on the way down to the ground. This injury, in my opinion, could have happened before Trayvon Martin at George Zimmerman. Could have happened.
State's Exhibit number 97, and I'm going to ask you about what's depicted in that photograph. If you could, about this right here that I'm circling right here, when you said abrasion, what do you mean?
It's a superficial injury from
Superficial.
blunt force trauma. This injury, in my opinion, could happen before Trayvon Martin met George Zimmerman. Could happen during the physical.
It's not responsive to a question.
Go
This is
for it.
again a narrative.
Over, go ahead now and ask your next question.
My question is, are you able to say when this is, tell us in terms of the injury could have occurred?
Occurred 2 hours before he died. Could happen right after shooting all the way down to the ground. Could happen during the physical struggle.
Okay, so it could have happened 2 hours before he even came into contact with the person who shot him. Could have happened during the shooting, and then even after he was shot, he fell to the ground?
Yes.
Okay.
Could have happened
If you
doing.
could tell us, exhibit number 97, the size of this abrasion.
Water by 1
And when we say abrasion, can you compare that to other types of injuries to the skin in terms of contusions or lacerations? Can you tell us what you mean by abrasion versus the other two?
Yeah, there are three types of blunt force trauma. First, superficial injury of the skin, we call abrasion. Second, laceration means there is break
Aberration.
of the skin,
Abrasion.
which causes the bleeding. Third is a contusion, means skin is still intact, but there is hemorrhage under the skin. So abrasion, laceration, contusion.
And so you're getting from less severe to more severe, is
Yes,
that correct?
yes.
And so the abrasion would be the least severe, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so you didn't have any evidence of contusion to this finger right here, or did you have any evidence of
No.
contusion? Okay, and you mentioned there was something on his, I guess, the fifth finger or the pinky of his left hand.
Yeah.
Circling it right there?
Yeah, these two small abrasions, just too small. I have no opinion.
Okay, again, just because
And with
that
this abrasion
doesn't necessarily
caused
mean
bleeding, in other words,
he
you expect
didn't
bleeding
hit
to
him.
occur from that abrasion.
The blood still inside.
I'm sorry.
The blood still in the capillary. That's why we see this red. stuff.
So would this be classified like a scratch to the skin?
Yes.
Dr. Bao, as part of your autopsy, did you also, I apologize, Your Honor, we don't need the light back on. Thank you. May I approach the witness again, Your Honor? Dr. Bao, as part of the autopsy, did you do what's referred to as fingernail scrapings?
Yes.
Okay, let me show you,
The
State
technician
Exhibit,
did. I did not do that.
One
But
of
I
the
was in the
persons
room.
under you?
Yes.
State Exhibit 191, do you recognize that, sir?
Yes.
And are those the two, I'm gonna call them as little sticks, but I don't know
Okay.
when you refer to them.
Yeah.
Are those each used, one for the right hand and one for the left hand?
Yes.
And what is done, is the stick actually go underneath the fingernail on all
So
on?
they do
Yeah.
it
The right and
too.
then the
They
left?
just
Every
do the
fingers.
one
Okay.
hand. What is this? Get off.
Also, as part of the autopsy is DNA or a blood card taken from the Trayvon Martin's body, specifically States Exhibit 186.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, what? Sorry. What?
And finally, sir,
Really, sir?
let me show you States Exhibit 98.
Fantastic.
Is this what's called an identification photograph?
Yes.
Sure.
Your Honor, this time I believe there's a stipulation if the court could read that to the jury.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the state of Florida, the defendant and his attorney hereby stipulate the following. Body examined on February 27th, 2012 by Dr. Shipping Bio, bearing the medical examiner case number of 12-24-043 is that of Trayvon Benjamin Martin.
Caution,
And
I don't know if they're
Dr.
going to show
Val-
it or not. I can't tell.
I know you talked about the gunshot wound entrance was from the front and it was straight to the heart. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now,
Keep your questions or comments to me, not to each other.
the
Yeah,
State Exhibit
don't
number
ignore her.
96, and I apologize, it should be actually 95. I guess, is this, the heart would be directly behind this gunshot wound, or where would it be if you were looking at this photograph right here, State Exhibit number 95?
No, I cannot tell from this photo.
Okay.
We remove the skin, remove the rib. At that point,
Jesus.
we saw the pericardial sac. We cut the pericardial sac, then we see the heart. So we cannot tell.
So you can't tell from this photograph itself, but it'd be,
from this photo said that the bullet went through the heart. You have to open the body to see that.
Why would you show that type of stuff?
Thank you, Your Honor. Let me have a moment, Your Honor.
It's me.
I don't have any further questions.
Thank you, Prof.
Oh, dear Jesus. Okay, well, that is all of this one. And then we have we got three. There was three of them. No, there's only two apparently. Well, we're gonna just knock this one out because it is only 33 minutes long. And then
All right, let's go ahead and bring them in.
I guess I took a break. And then we will end this video. Because then there should be, so after this guy, this should be state's witness, is what I'm seeing. So we're on cross for him.
If I could walk you through some of the
Why
steps that
does
you
it have to
took
be this
in
guy? I don't like this
performing the
guy.
autopsy in
Yes.
this
I'm
case,
sure he's
please,
great.
in a similar fashion to what Mr. to keep on track.
Mhm. Yes.
And setting the stage a little bit, when you prepare to do an autopsy, you use technicians to assist you, is that correct?
Yes.
And in this instance, you had two technicians, correct?
Yes.
Priscilla and Ben Dorton,
Yes.
and each of them had a specific role.
Yes.
Would you tell the jury, please, what the role was for each of those assistants?
Ben Dalton helped me to autopsy. Priscilla Feeler, she helped me to write down the fact during the autopsy. And also, she put all the evidence together because she had the clean hand. Ben Dalton and we do autopsy, she put all the together because she had the clean hand. The Priscilla Ben Dalton and we write down what I tell her autopsy to write down. I would say there's defect between fifth and the sixth ribs. She will write it. The Priscilla will write down what I tell her to write down. I would say there's defect between fifth and the sixth ribs. She will write it down.
Before you get to that point, though, of course, there has to be a preliminary inspection.
Yes.
And the bag is opened, and you see the individual there in the manner in which they were transported from the other location.
Yes.
And in this instance, there were no plastic bags around Mr. Martin's hands. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
And you're familiar with that term?
Yes.
And it's a crime scene investigation type technique where if there may be blood evidence or other kinds of evidence on the hands,
Yes.
then they can be just literally put in a plastic bag and sealed.
There's no plastic bag on the hand. There's just the body bag.
Yeah, so what you're saying is that
It's a body bag.
Trayvon Martin's hands did not have those plastic bags that sometimes accompany a body from the scene of the incident to the medical exam.
Actually, you cannot use plastic bag on the hand. It is the standard. It is the right practice that every time you should use paper bag instead of plastic
Paper
on the
bag.
hand.
They didn't bag his
On the body
hands,
is different
yo.
story. You
Well, let's
cannot.
talk about the hands just for a moment.
Okay.
Because I'm assuming that we saw
What?
a sequence here with the evidence photos of the way that Mr. Martin's body was presented to you and to your staff.
Yes.
And there were no paper bags on the hands,
Yes.
which meant that they were not put on the hands at the crime scene, the scene of the incident.
At first.
Yes, they did not do that.
And you are familiar with that procedure.
Yes.
And the purpose of it is to preserve the integrity of any evidence that might be located on the hands.
Yes.
That's crazy, yo.
You would have shown a photograph of that, I take it.
Yes. If hand was bagged,
Right.
we will take the photo before the bag will be removed.
And in this instance, am I correct that Mr. Martin's body remained at the scene prior to it being transported by the livery service for about 3 hours?
I do not have that information.
Don't you have the notes, I'm sorry, from your investigator that went there?
I did not go there.
Right, but do you have the notes that she would have kept about her arrival time and the time?
Yeah, I
that-
do. I do have the note.
When her name is Tara Malfers, Tara Clark, correct?
Yeah, yes.
Same person.
Yes.
And what time did she get there?
In the narrative she wrote, she
No,
arrived.
I don't want a narrative reading. I'd like you just to tell me what time did she indicate that she got there?
Because this is not my writing. I just read it. It
No,
is
what-
not my evidence. It is not my opinion. It is other people's reading. So I just tell you that.
These are notes that Ms. Malfers would have made in connection with the work that she did on behalf of your office.
Yes.
And-
And it is not part of the autopsy report.
Correct, but you have access to these notes. In
Yes,
fact, you
right
have-
here. I
you
read
have
to
them
you.
with you.
Yeah, I cannot remember these numbers.
Agreed.
Yes.
The question, though, precisely is, what time did she get there?
Approximately 21:44 hours means 9 p.m. 44 minutes.
The incident had occurred around 7:15.
In the notes here, she said,
Well, you can use that as a frame of reference. There's lots of evidence that the event occurred around 7:15. So-
Ask me allowed to answer the question, respond to the question.
Okay, he may do so.
okay,
No, no,
if you want, you can read the note.
no, the question is
This
this.
is not my note.
I-
Could be wrong. I'm under the oath, right? If I give you wrong information, it's perjury. You
Yes.
understand?
Uh,
Do you understand? I'm under the oath. I
Yes.
cannot give you wrong information. So it is not
Here's-
my note.
Let me
Yeah.
ask this question to try to clear that up.
Okay.
Assume, for your answer,
Yes,
that the event occurred about 7:15.
that's what he said. I don't know. I really don't know the
Please.
information, the timeline at the scene.
Yes, please assume that the event occurred about 7:15.
Yeah, if you are right.
If there's any dispute in that, the jury can resolve that
Okay.
at some point.
Okay.
So just as a rough time frame, 7:15 is when the event occurred, correct? For our purposes.
I don't
No,
know.
I'm not asking you to agree. I'm just asking you to assume that that's when the event occurred.
Okay, you can assume that.
Yes. And Ms. Malfers arrived at the scene about 2.5 hours later, correct?
I don't know. Again, I do not have the information. You cannot ask me yes or no question.
Based upon her notes that are part of your record,
Okay.
she says that she arrived at the scene at 21:44.
Yes.
That's
this is
about,
right here.
that's about quarter. And that's
Okay.
about 2.5 hours after the event, which we have assumed for our purposes occurred at 7:15.
Okay. It's not yes or no. I just say okay.
And that in her notes, she left at about 10 minutes after 10.
I did not see that on my note. So
Do you have the notes that she made in connection with the case that are in? If I could approach the witness, please.
Mr. May?
Dr. Allen, would you direct your attention
Okay.
to this?
this is what I have. You may have different things. So
No, that's the same.
okay.
Right here. Cleared the scene at approximately 22:10.
Yes.
That's TSM, that's Ms. Malfers.
Yes. Right.
So she left about 10 after 10.
Yes.
So if we're assuming for the moment that the event occurred about 7:15, it was just about 3 hours that Mr. Martin's body was at the scene.
Yes. Okay.
And at least to some degree, unprotected from the elements. Correct?
Objection, improper
I don't know.
factual basis for that.
Okay, please rephrase your question.
You cannot ask me question. I don't know. If it's yes, it's wrong. It's no, it's wrong.
Well, you know the hands weren't bagged, correct?
Yeah, that's the one I know because I did not see that.
Uh-huh. And you know the body was at the scene for about 3 hours.
I don't know
Based
exactly. All I know, his body was at the scene for some period of time. I do not have timeline. I do not
Wouldn't-
prepare
wouldn't
to
you
say
have-
this here.
Wouldn't you have reviewed the notes of the investigator as part of your overall understanding of the event in anticipation and preparation for the autopsy?
No, actually, it's not.
So you don't have any idea what's supposed to have happened when you do the autopsy?
All I know was in the morning, I did autopsy. He was shot and he's dead.
Right, so you had no idea what anyone had said about what had happened the night before?
We had normally, I did not remember. I told Mr. Mara during deposition, I did not have any.
Let me be precise with the question. So you did the autopsy without any knowledge having reviewed any information about what was supposed to have happened the night before?
I was told, again, I do not have any recall. I do not have any memory of the day of autopsy. I cannot answer your any question about that. All I hear is the notes I have. Okay.
Let me be sure I understand. what
Without
you're saying.
notes, I cannot tell you any fact. Without notes, I cannot tell you any opinion.
Okay, what you're saying today to me, and to the
Yes.
jury,
Yes.
is that you have no memory
Yes,
of any of the events surrounding the autopsy itself.
yes. I
that
tried
correct?
very hard.
Is that true?
It's true, 100% true. I tried.
Now, if you might let me ask.
Let me explain to you.
Just one second,
My
please.
objection is he's not allowed to answer the question.
Okay, we
Okay.
have to, and I've said this before, we have to allow the court reporter to take one person speaking down at a time. So if you will please, after your question, allow Dr. Bao to answer. Dr. Bao, after you have answered, wait for the next question.
Okay,
Thank
no
you. You may
I
proceed.
explain to you.
you.
Why
So-
this happened.
Wait, again,
I tell you why.
stop.
May I ask the question, Your Honor?
Yeah, I need to answer your first question.
Okay, Dr. Bao, please wait. There's another question. If he has not finished answering the
Yeah.
first question, he will be allowed to do so. So please wait for your question until he finishes his answer.
Okay,
Could
I tried.
we read the question back? Because I think it was a yes or no question.
I need to explain to jury why this happened.
Your
Why,
Honor, may the witness
why
please.
I cannot remember anything on the day of autopsy and other people can remember. So I did intensive study and I tried many times myself, 2 days or a few days before your deposition, which is 9 months after my autopsy. I came to my office
Your
from
Honor,
8 a.m.
I'm
to
sorry,
8
this is
p.m.
not responsive to the question.
Yeah, I explained why I did not remember. I put everything in front of me, the autopsy report,
Your Honor, would
the notes,
court
the
please
photos.
ask the witness to
I tried very hard. I cannot
respond to the
remember.
question?
Once more, we cannot interrupt each other. Dr. Bao, are you finished with your answer?
I need to explain to jury.
Okay, but you have, so we're ready for the next question. Okay,
No.
so please allow
Okay.
Mr. West
Next
to,
question. I do not remember anything. Zero.
okay, and we
Anything
understand,
on the day of autopsy. I depend on my notes.
we understand, sir. Please stop speaking so Mr. West can ask the next question.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, go ahead.
Understanding that you have no memory of the events surrounding the autopsy.
Yeah, no, go to memory.
Your testimony today then relies upon your autopsy report?
Yes, the notes,
Correct.
report, and the photos.
Are the notes different than the report itself?
No different.
So the autopsy report are the notes that you're talking about?
Yes.
So as we were starting a moment ago, let's talk about the procedure.
Yes.
At what point do you become, this is generally now,
Yeah.
because I know you don't remember this one, but
Yes.
generally, at what point do you see the body?
Generally speaking, it is not a fact that every morning we have conference 8:30 p.m., 8:30 a.m. Then we start to do autopsy. If it's homicide, as in this case, we check identification. We open the bag. We
Yeah.
take photos.
May I interrupt a moment
Okay.
to ask a more precise question,
Okay.
because I don't think this is responsive.
Now we have 3 people, now I'm speaking, so it's 4 people speaking at a time. Please state your objection.
My objection is not being allowed to answer the question.
It's okay.
My objection
It's
is
my
that it's
job.
not responsive to the question, and I would like to ask a specific question.
Okay.
Wait for your next question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As part of the autopsy protocol, generally speaking,
Yes.
at what point do you see the body? Is it as soon as the bag is opened, after the body has been undressed and the clothing collected, after the initial photographs are taken, after the fingernails are scraped? At what point do you see the body?
As soon as bag open, sometimes I open, sometimes technician open, sometimes we open together. As soon as we open the bag, we see the body.
In your autopsy report, you say the body is viewed unclothed.
Yes.
So
Let's
that's-
start from that's autopsy report.
Right, and in the report you say, this is your report.
Yes.
The body is viewed unclothed. And I want to ask-
After remove the clothes, then body is unclothed.
My question is, so are you testifying that you saw Mr. Martin's body fully clothed? Or did you see the body after your technicians unclothed the body and prepared the body for autopsy?
I was there the whole time. The body received.
So his report doesn't start till
We
he's
open the
naked.
bag, we remove the clothes.
How do you-
Autopsy report start from without clothes. I do not describe the clothes.
How do you know you did that in this case then?
I do not know. I do that every case.
That's your regular protocol?
Yeah, that's my opinion, not the fact.
So let's talk about what happens then.
Yes.
The bag is opened.
He doesn't recall doing that, but that's what he normally
then
does.
I assume the
Which I guess
body
is
is
fair.
removed from the bag.
Yes.
Unless
bag
they
is
just
removed
show up
from the body.
naked.
All right. And the body then is
Bag is
clothed
removed from the
Yes.
body.
and then photographed.
Shut up.
Yes, photograph before we remove them.
Yes. Do you take those photographs?
Normally, I do not.
Do you know who took them in this case?
Either Ben, Dalton, or Priscilla.
And those would be the photos taken of in Mr. Martin's clothed body, correct?
Yes.
And then after those photographs are taken, what happens next?
The Ben, Dalton, he would remove the clothes.
And where would you be during this?
I look at I don't recall what I did at the time, but generally speaking, I could look at the hand, look at the face.
But you don't know if you did in this case.
No, I didn't remember.
It's possible then that Mr. Dorton would do his assignment, and that is he would remove the clothing.
Yeah, that's his job. He was trained to do that. I have full confidence he did right.
Mhm. So you don't know if you witnessed any of that. You just know at some
I
point.
was there. I should be there.
Mhm.
I believe without the fact, it is my opinion, I should be there.
Oh, I agree. You should have been there.
Yes.
So you're not sure if you would. You believe you were.
Yes.
And then do you know what happens to the clothing at the point that it's removed from the body?
Say it again.
Yes.
Can you repeat the question?
What happens to the clothing when it's removed from the body?
We will pack them and put it in the paper bag and give to the police department.
Is that what happened in this case?
Should be.
Did it?
Should be. I told you I did not remember anything. And I need to explain why I did not remember and other people remember very exactly what happened 2 years ago.
If you would
I
just,
thought my brain is not too bad. So I did research about the
Your
movie.
Honor, may I ask a specific question and elicit a specific answer?
You asked me the question. I
Yes.
don't know.
What I want to know in this case
Yes.
was the clothing removed and packaged in paper bags.
I don't know. But should be. Like what you
It
said.
should have been.
Yes.
And you knew that the sweatshirt was damp.
I saw it from the photo. All my memory is new memory. Okay.
So in other words, you know from your training and experience as a medical examiner
Yeah.
that if clothing is wet,
Mhm.
it needs to be packaged in paper bags.
Yes.
And if plastic bags are
And
used,
actually, before we pack them, we let them dry a little bit.
did that happen in this case?
Again, I tell you, I did not know.
Okay, so the procedure would have been
Yes.
to dry the clothing
Yes.
and then package it in paper.
Yes.
But you don't know if that's what happened here.
Yeah. In this case, I do not remember. I cannot tell you anything
You do know,
beyond
though,
my notes.
you do know though from the photograph of the sweatshirt, the
Yes.
hooded sweatshirt,
Yes.
that it looks wet.
Yes.
So it would be inappropriate and a violation of protocol to take a wet sweatshirt and seal it in a plastic bag.
There is no plastic bag other than plastic bag carry the body.
So in other words, that you would never in your lab take a wet piece of clothing that's potentially evidence and seal it in a plastic bag.
If anybody do that, he'll be gone next day. He'll be fired. Because this is very basic concept for us to use paper bag instead of plastic bag. This is a rule.
It's kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah, it's right. Everybody do that. I have confidence they did that.
So the clothing is removed and packaged as appropriate.
Yes.
And that would include shoes.
Yes.
You saw shoes in the photo.
Yes, I shoes.
Do you know where the shoes are by any chance?
Now,
Mhm.
I have no idea where it is right now. When body coming in shoes is on feet.
The photograph that you saw
Shoes
the other
is on
day
feet.
showed the shoes.
Yes.
And you believe those are the shoes that Mr. Martin was wearing when his body was
Yeah.
presented to you.
Before I come here, I spent hundreds of hours. Review the photos, review my notes. All the thing I tell you today is based on my notes. It's new memory. It's not the old memory on the day of autopsy.
Are you,
I don't believe anybody can remember anything 2 years ago. I did research about that. The memory could be false memory, old,
Good research
confused
on that.
memory, recent.
are you
memory.
reading from something now?
Yeah, I read. I typed that myself
May I see what you're referring to, please? May I approach the witness?
because I puzzled by that. I could not remember the thing, and other
Nice.
people can.
May the witness not answer until I answer.
Okay.
Yes.
Show me what you're looking at.
Before this testimony, I told you I spent hundreds of hours. I typed down potential answers to your potential question. This is my notes.
Yes,
I rather you do not see this is my notes. Nobody saw that before. I thought it's
Dr.
mine.
Bao, if you're going to be reading from your notes, both attorneys are entitled to see what you're reading from. So
Okay,
please
no
allow him
problem.
to do so. You may approach the
Thank you.
witness.
You want to see this one?
All of the notes that you prepared in anticipation of your testimony today.
Okay, so you will return to me as soon as possible. Okay.
Perhaps it would be convenient if we made a copy for council. I can continue with some questioning and then we can look at them at our leisure.
You've got people here behind you. You can make a copy if you wish.
So they can make the copy?
Um,
It's my notes. I typed myself. Nobody read it before.
Okay. These are not the actual report that you rendered.
No, it's my personal note. I use my own time in the evening, weekend. I type these
Council would
notes.
like to take them and sit down and look over them. You may do so and return them to Dr. Bao.
All right, thank you.
Is something funny there?
There's no
Something-
question pending. Just, we'll wait till there's questions, please.
Yeah, something funny.
He is snarky. He has such an attitude.
Okay, if you're finished with the notes, then please let Mr. De La Rionda look at them, and Mr. West, you may continue with your questioning.
So is this the only time you can read it? Or
I'm sorry?
is this the only time you can read it, or you're?
Yes, sir, they're going to read them now, and then they will be returned to you.
No, we're close to the lunch hour, so I'm going to request that we have a copy
No,
of
you
the
cannot.
note.
It's my note.
I'm going to ask the court for a copy of these. I'm going to want to have an opportunity to review them more carefully and have an opportunity to question Dr. Val specifically about them, but I need a little time to do that. And I can proffer why, but I need that time. And I think the rules provide anything that a witness uses to
Okay,
aid
this is a
testimony.
speaking argument, and we can do that outside the presence of the jury. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll go ahead and break for lunch at this time. Please put your notepads face down. We'll be back at 1 p.m. During the lunch hour, please do not discuss this case amongst yourselves or with anybody else. Do all of you understand these instructions and will abide by them? Okay, thank you very much. Please put your notepads down and follow Deputy Jarvis. Please be seated. We're going to be in recess for lunch. The notes, I understand you're concerned about the notes. What I'm going to do is ask that the clerk make a copy of the notes. The attorneys will be instructed that those notes are not to be shared with anybody else. And after they're finished with their questioning, your notes will be destroyed. Their copy of your notes will be destroyed. So if you'll give it to the clerk, she'll make a copy and provide it to both sides with the confidentiality order that the court has entered previously in this case. As soon as you get your original of your notes back, you can go to lunch and be back here at 1 p.m. You're not to discuss your testimony with anyone because
right.
you're still considered to be on the stand.
That is it. Okay. Well, that was fun. That is the end of this one. Then we've got the arrest of little Sassy Pants' Cross and some recross is what I'm going to guess. And then defense is going to go for a motion for acquittal. And then, as you can see, it was denied. So there's that. But then that's the rest of day 8. Or no, day 9. Did I say day 8? We're on day 9. So, yay. Okay. Well, that's that. And
Bye.
You say bye. Say bye.
Bye.
Okay. Say see you on the next one.
Next one, but I won't be in it.